I hid $180 million from my wife for 9 years. While she clipped coupons and rode the subway, I secretly owned 38% of her father's luxury hotel empire. He thinks I'm a failure who trapped his daughter in poverty. Tonight, he's offering me charity, a $65,000 job at the company I control. Time to show him who really runs his business. My name is Evan Ross. I'm 44 years old, and I've spent the last 9 years pretending to be someone I'm not. When people ask what I do, I tell them I'm a real estate consultant. Small projects, modest commissions, nothing fancy. What I don't tell them is that I control $180 million in assets. What I really don't tell them is that 38% of those assets are tied up in Ashford Hotel Group, the luxury hotel empire owned by my father-in-law, who has no idea I'm the anonymous investor who's been quietly controlling his company for the past 6 years. The apartment where my wife Tori and I live costs $1,400 a month. I own the building. The car we drive is a 10-year-old Toyota. I have a vintage Porsche 911 sitting in climate-controlled storage in Connecticut. The furniture we assembled together from discount stores could have been replaced with pieces from Italian craftsmen whose waiting lists stretch 3 years. But I chose laminate over marble, polyester over silk, because I wanted to see if someone could love me for who I was instead of what I had. Turn out, I never gave anyone that chance. Because the man Tori fell in love with doesn't exist. It started innocently enough. We met at a Starbucks near Fenway Park on a Tuesday morning in March. She was 24, finishing her MBA, already working part-time for her father's company managing VIP guest relations. I was 35, supposedly scraping by on consulting gigs. She ordered tall coffee, black, nothing fancy. I remember thinking that was unusual for someone whose father owned 47 five-star hotels worldwide. We talked about the Red Sox, about Boston winters, about whether clam chowder was better at Legal Seafoods or some hole-in-the-wall place in the North End. Normal stuff. Real stuff. And when she asked what I did, I panicked. Because women who grew up in penthouses don't usually date men who own them. They date men who clean them. So I lied. Real estate consulting, I said, stirring my coffee like it was the most natural thing in the world. Helping small property owners maximize their investments. Nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills. Not technically false, just incomplete by about $180 million. That lie became the foundation of everything. Our first date at a Thai restaurant where we split the check. Our first apartment together, a studio in Alston that I secretly purchased through a shell company the week before we moved in. Our wedding 3 years later, where I gave her a gold band from a local jeweler instead of the 3-carat diamond I'd had designed by Cartier. Every moment built on deception. Every kiss tainted by omission. Every time she worried about our budget, I died a little inside knowing I could solve every problem with a phone call. But I didn't make that call, because somewhere along the way, I'd convinced myself that this was noble, that I was protecting the purity of our relationship, that money corrupted everything it touched, and our love was too precious to contaminate. I was wrong. The contamination wasn't the money. It was the lying. The call came on a Thursday evening in late October. Tori and I were making dinner together in our cramped kitchen, her chopping vegetables while I stirred pasta sauce from a jar. The kind of domestic scene that would have looked perfect in a lifestyle magazine, if you didn't know it was built on quicksand. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at the screen, and her expression shifted, something between anxiety and resignation. "It's my mother," she said, putting down the knife. I nodded, keeping my attention on the sauce. Constance Ashford rarely called without purpose. In the 6 years I'd known her, our interactions had been limited to awkward holiday gatherings and the occasional charity event where I felt like a street performer who'd wandered into the symphony. Tori answered, putting it on speaker. "Hi, Mom." "Victoria, darling." Constance's voice had that particular quality of someone who'd been to finishing school. Warm but controlled. "I hope I'm not interrupting dinner." "Just starting to cook," my wife said. "What's up?" "Your father and I would like to have you and Evan over for dinner. Saturday evening, if you're available." "Nothing formal, just family." I caught Tori's eye. She looked uncertain, maybe a little worried. We both knew there was no such thing as just family when it came to Richard Ashford. "This Saturday?" Tori asked. "That's pretty short notice." "I know, sweetheart, but your father has something he wants to discuss with Evan. He's been asking about it for weeks." The wooden spoon in my hand suddenly felt heavy. Richard Ashford wanting to discuss something with me was never good news. The man had made his opinion of me clear from the moment we met. Too old for his daughter. Wrong background. Insufficient prospects. The fact that I was actually wealthy enough to buy his hotel chain 3 times over was a detail he'd never know, unless I decided to tell him. What does he want to talk about? I asked, speaking up for the first time. There was a brief pause. He didn't say exactly, but I believe it's regarding a position at the company. An opportunity for you, Evan. Tori's eyes widened. I could read her thoughts clearly. Her father had never shown interest in my career before. This was something else. This was Richard Ashford deciding to rescue his daughter from the poor choice she'd made. Mom, Evan already has a career, Tori said, an edge creeping into her voice. Of course he does, dear. Your father just thought, well, with your expertise in real estate, Evan, there might be synergies with our hotel properties. But we can discuss it Saturday. Say 7 o'clock. I should have said no. Should have declined politely, come up with an excuse. But part of me, the part that had been building toward this moment for 6 years, wanted to see it play out. Wanted to watch Richard Ashford try to save me from poverty while sitting on furniture I could buy without checking my bank balance. 7 works for us, I said, my voice steady. We'll be there. Wonderful. I'll have Chef prepare something special. Evan, do you have any dietary restrictions? No, ma'am. I eat everything. Perfect. We'll see you both Saturday. Dress nicely, but nothing too formal. After she hung up, Tori turned to me, her face tight with concern. You don't have to do this, she said. I know my father. He's going to offer you some entry-level position and act like he's doing us a huge favor. It's going to be condescending and uncomfortable. I can handle your father, I said, turning back to the stove. It's not about handling him. It's about him treating you like you're not good enough. Like we're not good enough. I put down the spoon and pulled her close. She fit against me perfectly, the way she always had. Hey, your father's opinion doesn't change anything about us. About what we have. She pressed her face against my chest. I just hate that he looks down on you. On us. Like our life isn't valid because we're not living in some mansion. If only she knew. If only she knew that the modest life she was defending so fiercely was a performance I'd been staging for 9 years. That every struggle, every budgeted meal, every time we'd chosen the cheaper option, it had all been theater. The guilt sat in my stomach like a stone. It's just dinner, I said softly. A few hours, then we come home. But I knew it was more than that. Saturday night at the Ashford estate wasn't just dinner. It was the beginning of the end of everything I'd built on lies. Friday morning, I woke before dawn. Tori was still asleep, her breathing soft and steady beside me. I slipped out of bed carefully, grabbed my worn jeans and a faded Red Sox t-shirt, and headed out. This was my routine. The one Tori knew about involved taking the T downtown to a WeWork space where I supposedly met with small-time real estate clients. The reality was different. I walked 3 blocks to where I kept my actual car, a Mercedes S-Class, in a private garage under a different name. 20 minutes later, I was in my real office in the financial district, 42nd floor, corner suite with views of Boston Harbor. Patricia Morgan was already there, coffee brewing, looking at me over her reading glasses with that expression that said she knew exactly how badly I was screwing up my life. Morning, I said, dropping my backpack on a leather sofa that cost more than our apartment's yearly rent. Mr. Ross, she said, her tone formal despite 5 years of working together. The Ashford quarterly reports are on your desk. Board meeting at 9. Patricia was 53, former CFO of a hospitality conglomerate, and the only person besides my lawyer who knew the full scope of my deception. I'd hired her after selling my first major property portfolio, back when I was still figuring out how to hide a fortune. Any red flags? I asked, settling behind my desk. Revenues up 6% across all properties. Occupancy rates holding steady. Your father-in-law wants to expand into the Miami market. She paused. Against my recommendation. And mine, I said, opening the report. Miami's oversaturated. He's chasing prestige, not profit. Will you block it? Through the usual channels. Anonymous investor concern, board review, independent market analysis that mysteriously appears next week. Patricia sat across from me, her expression serious. Evan, tomorrow night. Are you really going through with this dinner? Don't have much choice. You could tell Victoria the truth. Before you walk into that house. Give her time to process. I'd had this conversation with Patricia a dozen times. She thought I was being cruel, keeping Tori in the dark. Maybe she was right. I need to see it, I said quietly. Need to see how Richard treats someone he thinks is beneath him. Then I'll decide. Decide what? Whether to blow up your marriage for the satisfaction of proving a point. Whether the truth is worse than the lie. Patricia stood, gathering her things. The truth is always better than the lie, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. The board meeting went as expected. I attended via secure video, voice slightly distorted, face shadowed. The board members of Ashford Hotel Group had never met their largest investor. They knew me only as the principal, represented by lawyers and proxies. Richard's Miami proposal was discussed. I listened as he presented his vision with the confidence of a man who'd built an empire. He was good at this, I'd give him that. Passionate, persuasive, but the numbers didn't support the expansion. Through my proxy, I raised concerns. Market saturation, construction costs, ROI projections that seemed optimistic. The board agreed to table the discussion pending further analysis. Richard would be frustrated. He'd spend the weekend stewing over the anonymous investor who kept blocking his grand plans. Tomorrow night, that investor would sit at his dinner table, and he'd have no idea. I left the office at 4, changed back into my cheap clothes in the garage, took the T home. By the time I walked through our apartment door at 5:30, I was Evan Ross, struggling real estate consultant, not the man who just killed a $50 million hotel project. Tori was in the kitchen, laptop open, stress evident in the set of her shoulders. Rough day? I asked, kissing the top of her head. Client from hell, she muttered. Russian oligarch staying at her Dubai property. Wants the presidential suite redesigned because he doesn't like the color of the marble. I knew that property. Knew its financials, its management structure, its profit margins. Knew that the Russian oligarch was probably a headache, but also paying $30,000 a night. Can't please everyone, I said. She closed the laptop, turning to face me. I'm nervous about tomorrow. It's just dinner. It's never just dinner with my parents. There's always an agenda. She stood, wrapping her arms around herself. Promise me something? Anything. When my father offers you this job, whatever it is, don't take it just to make him happy. Don't take it to make me happy. Only take it if you actually want it. I pulled her close, feeling the weight of every lie between us. I promise. But we both knew the truth. Or rather, she knew her truth. That I was a good man trying to make an honest living in a city that chewed up people like me. That her father's offer would be charity disguised as opportunity. She didn't know that I didn't need Richard Ashford's charity. That I could buy his charity and his company and his mansion and still have enough left over to retire comfortably for 3 lifetimes. Tomorrow night, one way or another, that was going to change. Saturday morning arrived too quickly. I woke to find Tori already up, sitting by the window with her coffee, staring out at nothing. You okay? I asked, joining her. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Just thinking about tonight. About how my father's going to be. He can't be that bad. Evan, you don't know him like I do. When I was growing up, he used to bring my boyfriends into his study and grill them like they were applying for a Fortune 500 position. One guy literally left through the bathroom window. I had to laugh at that image. I'm not leaving through any windows. No, but he's going to make you feel small. That's what he does. He measures everyone by their bank account and their position, and if you don't measure up. She trailed off. What she didn't say was that I didn't measure up. By Richard Ashford standards, I was a failure. A 44-year-old consultant with no significant assets, no prestigious title, no country club membership. Let him think what he wants, I said. I know who I am. Did I, though? Some days I wasn't sure anymore. Was I Evan Ross, the secret millionaire? Or was I the struggling consultant I'd been pretending to be for so long that the mask had fused to my face? We spent the day trying to act normal. Breakfast at our neighborhood diner, $10 for 2 people. A walk through Boston Common, watching October leaves fall. Laundry at the building's coin-operated machines. All the routines of a modest life that I'd carefully constructed. At 5, Tori started getting ready. I heard the shower running, heard her moving around the bedroom, heard the anxiety in every movement. I pulled out my phone, the real one. Checked the messages from Patricia. Ashford financials attached. Miami project officially tabled. Richard sent 3 angry emails to board members this morning demanding to know who blocked it. Thought you should know his mood before dinner. Perfect. I was about to have dinner with a man who was furious at me, and he didn't even know it. I texted back, thanks. Monday we'll discuss the quarterly dividend structure. Then I put the phone away, buried it in my sock drawer under the cheap cotton socks I wore to maintain appearances. Tori emerged from the bedroom at 6:15, wearing a dark green dress I'd never seen before. She looked beautiful and terrified. Too much? She asked, turning. You look perfect. I bought it last week. I know we're trying to save money, but I needed something nice and I found it on sale and... She was rambling, nervous. I stopped her with a kiss. You look perfect, I repeated. Your father would be crazy not to be proud of you. It's not me he's judging, she said quietly. I changed into my best outfit, which wasn't saying much. Khakis, a blue button-down shirt, a blazer I'd bought at a thrift store and had tailored to fit perfectly. The watch on my wrist looked like a department store special. It had belonged to my grandfather and was worth $80,000. We took the T to Wellesley, then a cab to her parents' estate. The fare was $23. Tori counted out exact change from her wallet, and I watched her do it, knowing I could have called a private car service and not noticed the expense. The cab dropped us at the gates. Literal gates, iron and imposing, with a call box and security camera. Tori pressed the button. It's Victoria and Evan, she said. The gates swung open silently, revealing a driveway that curved through manicured grounds. In the distance, the house rose like something from a different era. Colonial architecture, white columns, probably 12,000 square feet. I'd seen the property records, valued at $18 million. Richard had a mortgage for $7 million, which surprised me. A man who projected such wealth, still leveraged like he was afraid of liquidity. As we walked up the drive, Tori's hand found mine, squeezing tight. Whatever happens in there, she whispered, remember that I chose you. Not him. Not his world. You. The words nearly broke me. Because she'd chosen someone who didn't exist. She'd chosen a fiction I'd created, and tonight, that fiction was about to be tested. Richard Ashford made us wait. It was deliberate, I knew. A power play. We sat in his pristine living room for 20 minutes, making small talk with Constance about weather and traffic while ice melted in our wine glasses. When he finally appeared, it was with the presence of a man accustomed to commanding rooms. 67 years old, silver hair perfectly styled, wearing slacks and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than our monthly rent. His handshake was firm to the point of aggressive. Evan, he said, my name sounding like an accusation. Good of you to make time. Thank you for having us, sir. I replied, meeting his grip with equal pressure. His eyes narrowed slightly. He'd expected me to wilt. Most people did around Richard Ashford. Shall we move to the dining room? Constance suggested, tension evident in her voice. The dining room was exactly what I'd expected. Mahogany table that could seat 12, chandelier dripping crystal, place settings that probably cost more than our couch. Through the windows, the grounds were lit strategically, showcasing gardens maintained by people Richard probably didn't know by name. Dinner started with small talk. The hotel business was doing well, Richard explained. Occupancy rates up, new properties under consideration. He spoke with the confidence of a man who believed he was solely responsible for his success. I'd blocked 3 of those new properties in the last board meeting alone. So, Evan, Richard said, cutting into his appetizer with surgical precision. Tori tells me you're in real estate consulting. That's right, I said. Consulting. He made it sound like a hobby. Must be challenging, building a client base in this market. It has its moments. I'm sure. He took a sip of wine. What kind of properties do you typically work with? The questions came like jabs. Small residential? Commercial? What's your annual revenue? How many clients? Do you have an office or work from home? Each question designed to establish hierarchy, to prove that my world was small and his was vast. Tori's hand found mine under the table, squeezing tight. Mostly smaller commercial properties, I said calmly. Helping owners maximize their returns, identify growth opportunities. Growth opportunities, Richard repeated. Fascinating. In my experience, real growth requires significant capital, access to funding, connections. He looked directly at me. Do you have those kinds of resources? I could have told him yes. could have explained that I had more capital than his entire hotel chain. That my connections included CEOs, board members, and politicians he'd spent years cultivating. Instead, I said, I work with what I have. Noble, Richard said, though his tone suggested otherwise. But nobility doesn't pay mortgages, does it? Dad, Tori interjected, her voice sharp. That's not. I'm simply making conversation, Victoria. Richard turned back to me. You're 44, correct? That's right. And you've been consulting for how long? About 9 years. 9 years. He set down his fork. Most men your age, in this industry, they've either built something substantial or they moved on. Which category would you say you fall into? The insult was wrapped in curiosity, but it was still an insult. Constance looked mortified. Tori looked furious. But I kept my expression neutral. I'd say I've built exactly what I intended to build, I replied. And what's that? A life that works for me and my wife. Richard leaned back, studying me like I was a particularly disappointing quarterly report. A life that works. Interesting philosophy for a man married to my daughter. Richard, please, Constance said softly. He ignored her. Tori grew up with certain expectations, certain standards. I'm sure you understand that providing for her requires more than good intentions. I understand that providing for someone means more than just money, I said, my voice level. It means partnership, support, building something together. Romantic. Richard smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Also impractical. Tell me, Evan, what happens when the partnership needs a new car? When it needs to handle medical emergencies? When it wants to start a family? Tori stood abruptly. This is unacceptable. We're leaving. Sit down, Victoria, Richard commanded. No, I won't sit here while you interrogate my husband like he's applying for a job. Actually, Richard said, his voice softening slightly, that's exactly what I had in mind. The room went silent. Constance looked at her hands. Tori remained standing, confused. Richard reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope, setting it on the table in front of me. Ashford Hotel Group has an opening, he said. Junior property manager. $65,000 a year, full benefits, room for advancement. It's a generous offer for someone with your limited experience. I stared at the envelope. This was it. The moment I've been simultaneously dreading and anticipating for 6 years. You're offering me a job, I said flatly. I'm offering you an opportunity. A chance to provide for my daughter properly. To build a real career instead of scraping by on consulting fees. He pushed the envelope closer. Take it home, review it, think about it. But I expect an answer by Monday. Tori's face had gone pale. Dad, this is me helping. Richard interrupted. This is me doing what fathers do. Taking care of my family. I picked up the envelope, feeling its weight. Inside was an offer to work for the company I secretly controlled. To report to managers who reported to a board I manipulated. To accept charity from a man whose entire business existed at my discretion. The irony was exquisite. The cruelty of it, the condescension, the absolute certainty that he was rescuing me from inadequacy. It was everything I'd suspected about Richard Ashford, confirmed in one gesture. And looking at Tori's face, at the humiliation and anger there, I knew exactly what I had to do. I set the envelope down carefully, like it was something fragile that might shatter. The dining room had gone completely quiet except for the soft classical music playing from hidden speakers. That's very generous, Richard, I said, my voice steady. Before I respond, can I ask you something? He leaned back, confident. Of course. What do you know about your company's largest shareholder? The question clearly caught him off guard. His brow furrowed slightly. Our largest shareholder is an anonymous investment group. What? You've been trying to identify them for what? 5 years now. Richard's expression shifted from confusion to suspicion. 6 years. But I fail to see what that has to do with. You hired 3 different firms to trace the ownership structure. None of them succeeded. Now Constance was looking at me strangely. Tori had sat down, her eyes wide. How do you know that? Richard asked, his voice cold. I pulled out my phone. Not the cheap one Tori knew about. The other one. I scrolled through emails, found what I needed, and slid it across the table to Richard. Read that, I said. He picked up the phone cautiously, his face going through a series of expressions as he read. Confusion, disbelief, shock, then something that looked like fear. This is This is internal board communication. About the Miami expansion. About blocking my proposal. He looked up at me. How did you get this? I wrote it. I said simply. Or rather, my legal team wrote it on my behalf. Evan, what's going on? Tori asked, her voice small. I turned to her, seeing the confusion in her eyes. This was it. The moment where everything changed. I haven't been completely honest with you, I said. About what I do. About what I have. What are you talking about? I looked back at Richard. The anonymous investor you've been trying to identify? The one who owns 38% of Ashford Hotel Group? The one who's been quietly guiding your board decisions for the past 6 years? I paused. That's me. The silence was absolute. That's impossible, Richard said, but his voice lacked conviction. Check the phone. There are emails going back 5 years. Board minutes. Financial reports. Acquisition approvals and denials. All of them handled through shell companies and legal proxies that trace back to me. Tori stood again, backing away from the table. No, that's not. You're a consultant. We live in a $1,400 apartment. An apartment I own, I said quietly, along with the building, and 43 other properties in a 6-block radius. You're lying, she whispered. I pulled out my wallet, removed a black card I'd never shown her, and set on the table. American Express, Centurion. Invitation only. Requires annual spending of over $250,000. Constance gasped softly. Richard's face had gone from red to pale. The car we drove here in. I continued. I have a Porsche 911 and a Range Rover in storage. The furniture we assembled? I could have bought pieces from Italian craftsmen. Every time you worried about money, every time you budgeted, every time you chose the cheaper option, I could have solved it with a phone call. Stop, Tori said, tears starting to stream down her face. Just stop. But I couldn't stop. Not now. I control $180 million in assets, Tori. I made my fortune in real estate before we even met. And I've spent 9 years pretending to be poor because I wanted to see if someone could love me for who I was instead of what I had. Richard found his voice, though it shook with rage. You manipulated my company. You infiltrated my family. You deceived my daughter. I fell in love with your daughter. I corrected. The deception came because I knew how you'd react. How you're reacting right now. How you look at people based on their bank balance instead of their character. You have no character, Richard spat. A man of character doesn't lie to his wife for 9 years. He wasn't wrong. I turned to Tori, who was staring at me like I was a stranger. I'm sorry, I said. I know that's not enough. I know I should have told you years ago. But I wanted. You wanted what? Her voice broke. You wanted to test me? To see if I'd pass some kind of experiment? While you watched me struggle and worry and stress about money that apparently meant nothing. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Evan? She was crying openly now. Explain to me how any of this was okay. I had no answer. Because it wasn't okay. None of it had ever been okay. Tori grabbed her purse from the side table, her movements sharp and angry. I need to leave. I can't be here right now. Victoria, wait. Constance started, but Tori was already heading for the door. I followed her out of the dining room, catching up to her in the foyer. Tori, please. Let me explain. She spun around, tears streaming down her face. Explain what, Evan? How you've been lying to me since the day we met. How every moment of our marriage has been built on deception. Not every moment. What we have, what we feel for each other, that's real. How would I even know? Her voice broke. You've been playing a role for 9 years. The struggling consultant who worried about money. The guy who took the subway and ate cheap takeout and pretended we were building something together from nothing. But it was never from nothing, was it? You had everything the whole time. Behind us, Richard emerged from the dining room, his face purple with rage. You need to leave my house. Now. I'm trying to talk to my wife, I said, not taking my eyes off Tori. Your wife who you've been deceiving for 9 years. The daughter you manipulated while secretly controlling my company. Richard stepped closer. You're a snake, Ross. I want you out. Dad, stop, Tori said, but there was no conviction in her voice. I'll stop when this fraud is out of my home. Richard pulled out his phone. In fact, I'm calling my lawyers. There has to be legal recourse for what you've done. Corporate espionage, fraud, manipulation. There's no legal case, I said calmly, finally turning to face him. Every share purchase was legitimate. Every proxy vote was properly executed. Every communication with the board followed established protocols. I maintained anonymity, which is completely legal for investors. You married my daughter to get close to my company. I married your daughter because I love her. I bought into your company because you were destroying it with reckless decisions. Richard's hand shook as he pointed at me. Get out. Get out before I have you physically removed. Tori was already opening the front door. I'm going to Julia's, she said, naming her best friend. Don't follow me, Evan. Don't call. I need time to think about whether I even want to see you again. How much time? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. I don't know. Maybe forever. She looked at me, and the pain in her eyes was devastating. Maybe I'll never be able to trust you again. Maybe this is just over. She walked out into the night. I started to follow, but Constance touched my arm. Let her go, she said softly. She needs space to process this. I stood in the doorway, watching Tori disappear down the driveway, her figure illuminated by landscape lighting until she reached the gates and vanished beyond them. When I turned back, Richard was on his phone with someone, discussing legal options. Constance stood wringing her hands, looking between her husband and me. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I understand why you hid it. Richard can be difficult about money and status, but you should have told Victoria before you married her. She deserved that honesty. She was right. They were all right. I've been so focused on protecting myself from gold diggers and social climbers that I've forgotten the most important thing. Tori deserved to choose who she married with full knowledge of who I was. I pulled out my phone and texted Patricia. It's done. Everything's out. Prepare for fallout. Her response came immediately. I'll handle the board. You handle your marriage. If you still have one. That was the question, wasn't it? I spent the night in a hotel. Not one of Richard's properties, obviously. I booked a room at the Four Seasons using my real credit card, under my real name, for the first time in 9 years with no pretense attached. The irony wasn't lost on me. After years of hiding wealth, I was finally using it because I had nowhere else to go. Sleep didn't come. I lay in a king-size bed that cost more per night than our apartment's weekly rent, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the evening. Richard's rage, Constance's disappointment, Tori's devastation. That last one hurt the most. My phone rang at 6 in the morning. Patricia, the board knows, she said without preamble. Richard called an emergency meeting for Monday. He's demanding your identity be revealed publicly and that you divest your shares. Can he force that? No. But he can make things uncomfortable. He's also threatening to go to the press. I sat up, rubbing my face. Let him. The truth is out anyway. Evan, if this becomes public, it's not just about you and Tori anymore. It's about the company, the employees, the investors. We need to control the narrative. I'm done controlling things, Patricia. That's what got me into this mess. She was quiet for a moment. What do you want me to do? Prepare transfer documents. I'm giving the shares back to Richard. You're what? Giving them back. All 38%. I don't want his company. I never really did. I don't even know what I wanted anymore. That's $40 million you're talking about walking away from. I have $140 million more. I'll survive. I stood, walking to the window. Boston was waking up below, people starting their Sunday morning routines. Draw up the papers. Make it clean. Make it legal. I want nothing from him, except for him to leave Tori alone. After I hung up, I tried calling Tori. It went straight to voicemail. I tried texting. No response. I called Julia, Tori's best friend. She doesn't want to talk to you, Julia said, her voice cold. I know. I just need to know she's okay. She's not okay, Evan. She's devastated. She spent all night crying. Do you have any idea what you've done to her? I know I hurt her. I know I was wrong. I just need to make it right. I don't think you can. Some things can't be fixed. The line went dead. I spent the rest of Sunday in that hotel room, ordering room service I didn't eat, watching the hours pass. My phone stayed silent except for updates from Patricia about the legal documents and a few messages from business associates who'd somehow heard rumors. By evening, I couldn't take the isolation anymore. I went back to our apartment. My apartment, technically, though thinking of it that way made me sick. Tori wasn't there, but evidence of her packing was everywhere. Drawers left open, hangers on the floor, her favorite coffee mug gone from the kitchen. 3 weeks passed in a blur of lawyers, board meetings, and silence from Tori. Patricia handled the transfer of shares back to Richard, who accepted them with suspicion, convinced there had to be a catch. There wasn't. I walked away from $40 million without conditions. The board was furious. Several members threatened to resign, feeling betrayed by the anonymous investor reveal. I let them. It wasn't my problem anymore. What was my problem was the emptiness. Our apartment felt like a museum to a failed marriage. I'd moved into a hotel downtown, unable to face the space we'd shared. Then, on a Tuesday morning, my phone rang. Tori's number. Hello. I answered, almost afraid to breathe. We need to talk, she said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. Can you meet me at the coffee shop? The one where we met. When? Now. I was there in 15 minutes. She was already seated at a corner table, looking thinner, tired, beautiful, and devastated. I said, sitting across from her. Don't. She held up her hand. Don't do small talk. I have things I need to say. I nodded, waiting. I've spent 3 weeks trying to process this, trying to understand how the man I loved could lie to me for 9 years, trying to figure out if any of it was real or if I was just part of some elaborate social experiment. It was real, I said quietly. What we had, what we felt, that was always real. Was it? Because I keep going back through our relationship, and I can't separate the truth from the performance. That night we stayed up talking about our dreams. Were those your real dreams? Or were you just playing poor Evan the consultant? Those were my real dreams. Building something meaningful. Finding someone who saw me, not my bank account. But I never saw you, Evan. That's the point. You made sure I couldn't see you. You hid behind this character you created, and you let me fall in love with someone who doesn't exist. The words cut deep because they were true. I'm sorry. I know you are. I've read your texts, your emails, your voicemails. I know you're sorry. She took a shaky breath. But sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't give me back 9 years of honesty. What do you want from me? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. I want to understand why. Really why. Not the surface answer about protecting yourself from gold diggers. I want to know what was so broken in you that you thought this was okay. I sat back, considering the question, really considering it for the first time. My ex-girlfriend, I said finally. Before I made my fortune, I was with someone for 3 years. We were planning to get married. Then I sold my first major property portfolio, made $20 million overnight, and everything changed. She started spending money like it was water. Started introducing me to her friends as my fiancé, the real estate mogul. Started planning a wedding that cost more than most people's houses. So you left her? I confronted her. Asked if she'd still love me if I lost everything. She laughed. Said of course not. That the money was the point. That she'd never have dated me in the first place if I'd been poor. I looked at Tori. That broke something in me. Made me paranoid. Made me think everyone was like her. So you decided to test me. To see if I was different. Not consciously. At first. I just didn't want to mention the money. Then days became weeks. Weeks became months. And the lie got too big to undo without destroying everything. Tori was quiet for a long moment. I found something out last week, she said. Something that makes this even worse. My stomach dropped. What? I'm pregnant. The world stopped. You're what? 8 weeks. I found out 3 days after you dropped your bomb in my parents' house. She looked at me, and there were tears in her eyes now. So now I have to decide not just whether I can forgive you, but whether I want to raise a child with someone I can't trust. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Tori, I haven't decided yet, she interrupted. About any of it. About us. About the baby. About anything. I just thought you deserved to know. What can I do? How can I fix this? She stood, gathering her things. I don't know if you can, but I'll tell you this, Evan. If there's any chance at all, you need to figure out who you really are. Not rich Evan. Not poor Evan. Just Evan. Because I can't build a life with someone who's still hiding. She left me sitting there, staring at cold coffee, processing the fact that I was going to be a father. 2 months later, I sat in Dr. Rachel Thompson's office for my weekly therapy session. Patricia had suggested it after I'd spent a week barely leaving my hotel room. Turn out, she was right. Tell me about this week, Dr. Thompson said. I signed the final divorce papers, I said. Tori kept the apartment. I gave her $2 million in a settlement, which her lawyer tried to increase to 10, but Tori refused. Said she didn't want my money, just wanted it over. How did that make you feel? Like I deserved it. Like I deserved worse. Dr. Thompson made a note. And the baby? She's keeping it. We've agreed to co-parent. I'll have visitation rights. Pay child support. She doesn't want to reconcile. Says the trust is too broken. Do you agree with that assessment? I thought about it. Yeah, I do. What I did, lying for 9 years, watching her struggle when I could have helped, testing her without her knowledge. That's not something you just forgive. That's fundamental betrayal. You're being hard on yourself. I should be. Dr. Thompson set down her pen. Evan, we've been working together for 8 weeks now. You've made progress in understanding why you hid your wealth, why you felt the need to control the narrative of your relationships. But you're still punishing yourself. At some point, you need to forgive yourself and move forward. How do I do that when I destroyed the best thing in my life? By learning from it. By being honest moving forward. By being the father your child deserves, even if you can't be the husband Tori needed. That hit home. I was going to be a father in 7 months. A daughter, the ultrasound had shown. And I had 7 months to become someone worthy of that responsibility. After therapy, I drove to my new place. Not a hotel anymore. A modest condo in Cambridge, 2 bedrooms, nothing extravagant. I'd sold most of my properties, donated half my wealth to charity, kept enough to live comfortably, but not extravagantly. Patricia thought I was crazy. Maybe I was. But I needed to figure out who I was without the performance, without the lies. My phone buzzed. A text from Tori. Doctor's appointment Thursday at 2. You're welcome to come if you want. I texted back immediately. I'll be there. Thank you. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, she's your daughter too. You should be part of this, even if we're not together. I stared at that message for a long time. Not together. The finality of it still hurt. But she was giving me a chance to be a father, to be part of my daughter's life. That was more than I deserved. Thursday came. I met Tori at the doctor's office, both of us awkward and careful around each other. But when the ultrasound tech put the image on the screen, showed us our daughter's tiny heartbeat, something shifted. Tori reached for my hand without thinking. I took it, and we sat there, watching our child move on the screen. Have you thought about names? The tech asked cheerfully. Tori and I looked at each other. Not yet, she said. We're still figuring things out. After the appointment, we stood in the parking lot, neither of us sure how to end the interaction. Thank you for letting me be here, I said finally. Like I said, she's yours too. Tori hesitated. I've been thinking about what you said at the coffee shop, about your ex. Yeah. I'm not her, Evan. I never was. And if you'd just told me the truth from the beginning, I would have loved you anyway. The money wouldn't have changed that. I know that now. But you couldn't see it then. You were so focused on protecting yourself that you forgot to actually live. She put her hand on her stomach. I hope you can do better for her. Be honest with her. Let her really know you. I will. I promise. She nodded, then walked to her car. I watched her drive away, understanding that some mistakes couldn't be unmade. But maybe, just maybe, they could be learned from. 6 months later, I held my daughter for the first time. Eleanor Victoria Ross. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect. Tori was exhausted but smiling. Her new boyfriend, Preston Whitlock, waited in the hallway. It stung, seeing her with someone else. But she deserved happiness, even if it wasn't with me. You want to hold her? Tori asked. I took Eleanor carefully, supporting her head the way the nurses had shown me. She looked up at me with dark eyes, innocent and trusting. Hi, Eleanor, I whispered. I'm your dad. And I promise you this. I will never lie to you. I will never hide who I am. You will always know the real me. Tori smiled. That's all I ever wanted. It wasn't the ending I'd imagined. I'd lost my wife. Lost the chance at the family I'd wanted. But I gained something too. Honesty. The freedom to be fully myself. And a daughter who would grow up knowing her father, flaws and all. Sometimes the truth costs everything. But it's still worth it.